Ladies and gentlemen, William Barr, former Attorney General William Barr, who also served under the George Herbert Walker Bush administration, is voting for Donald Trump. What does that tell you? Hit subscribe to this channel right now. We're almost at 194,000 subs. People, this is because of you. Thank you so very much. I come with a different perspective than most people. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post, years back. I became a supporter of President Trump, and I explain in The Federalist. You can go type in H.A. Goodman Federalist, and you can find out why my value system hasn't changed. I want a great economy, and I want a foreign policy that isn't hawkish or belligerent or pushes for never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts and wars, which is what Democrats and the Lincoln Project push for all the time. No-fly zones, all of those things that could lead to the annihilation of the planet. So, if you oppose the Lincoln Project, I'm going to vote for you. Very simple calculus. It's not difficult to understand. Also, record low unemployment, record low Black and Latino unemployment, Abraham Accords. President Trump negotiated the Doha Agreement, which Biden completely botched. Those 13 Americans should be alive today. Those over 100 Afghans should be alive today. We see what's going on right now in Europe, and that's under mashed potato brains. That's under his presidency, okay? The worst fears of Trump's presidency are being realized today. Could you imagine if gas prices were at all-time highs? Could you imagine if inflation was approaching 10%? Could you imagine if we had 0 to 0.5% economic growth for the first quarter of 2022, which is what is being estimated? Could you imagine if all of these things were taking place under Trump? Oh my God. They impeached Trump on an ellipsis, even though President Zelensky stated Trump never pressured him. Literally, the president of that country stated Trump never pressured him into anything. And they got the lethal aid, but still, the opinion of a colonel and a whole bunch of foreign policy experts, quote unquote, apparently overshadowed the categorical claim of the president, who was said to have been pressured, which he stated never happened. Anyway, why is it important that William Barr is voting for Donald Trump? William Barr doesn't really like his personality, has critiqued President Trump, didn't really back him on a number of things, although reiterated a whole bunch of, backed him on a whole bunch of topics that are now deemed blasphemous. Especially the fact that the Mueller probe special counsel report vindicated President Trump. Okay, vindicated Donald Trump. Okay, could you imagine if President Biden had a dossier written about him? We couldn't even talk about Hunter's emails. We couldn't even talk about Hunter's emails because it was supposed to have been hacked. They were supposed to have been hacked by another country. Of course, that was a lie. And then we found out, oh, by the way, Politico stated that the New York Post was 100% accurate. That, oh yes, the reporting was great and that was real journalism. Oh, and so, yet again, the fact-checking buffoons were wrong. And they covered up and silenced an actual legitimate story because, oh, guess what? It hurt the Democratic Party. But here, today, former Attorney General William Barr said he'd still vote for Trump in 2024. Here's the reason people will still vote for Trump. 73 million Americans still voted for Trump, despite 90+% negative news coverage. We had a great economy. This would never have happened. What's taking place in Europe would never have happened under Trump. It didn't happen. It's happening while Democrats are in power. It didn't happen under Trump because he would have negotiated a deal. Oh, by the way, a negotiated settlement might take place soon, and that will entail exactly what Trump would have negotiated, that Zelensky and Kiev don't join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is exactly what I've been talking about for months now. Biden could have negotiated a deal, but apparently he chose, because it was a choice. You had bumbling Blinken and Sullivan and mashed potato brains choosing not to foster any negotiation, and instead having one country invade another because of that specific topic, the topic of membership into that alliance, which now, when there's a peace deal eventually, whether it's tomorrow or a couple of months from now, God forbid, or a year from now, God forbid, what will take place is that deal will be signed and both parties will agree to not joining the alliance, which could have been agreed upon before all this mayhem and chaos and suffering. But again, if you look at media, Trump bad, the Reds, the Ruskies really bad, horrible, ban everything, sanction everything, but don't negotiate a deal. Because the sacred cows that Biden and Kinzinger and Cheney and Rumsfeld and the Lincoln Project and the Bush people, the sacred cows that they worship, you can't commit heresy or blasphemy. You certainly couldn't side with you-know-who, okay, and negotiated a deal before hostilities took place, before there was an invasion, to ensure that, well, you know what, it's not right. Yes, it's true. It's a sovereign country. They have a right to technically join any alliance they want, but you know what? We could have achieved that without all the suffering. But of course, the establishment and media, no problem. They have no problem with that. My point is that it wouldn't have happened under Trump. None of this would have happened under Trump. The gas prices, the zero economic growth, what's taking place in Europe, because he would have negotiated a settlement prior to an invasion that Biden refused to negotiate. He was even talking about a minor incursion, Biden. And then that was, immediately refuted, or, Zelensky, vehemently disagreed with that kind of rhetoric. But we had record low unemployment under Trump. It was not Trump Republicans, let's say. It was not Trump that wanted to end economic activity. He acquiesced for a month or two, and that was wrong of him. But it was Democrats who pushed, can't, too soon. I wrote in the Federalist exactly what's taking place, and we're going to experience a devastating economic collapse, or I should say stock market collapse, and we're going into a recession. Would you rather have a recession, high gas prices, high oil prices, geopolitical nightmares? We haven't even talked about China and Taiwan. Would you rather have an economy that's barely growing or contracting into a recession? Or would you rather have a great economy, a less belligerent or hawkish foreign policy, where, media and institutions don't just censor and silence everything, and tweets from Trump? You would rather have, if you were a morally superior liberal Democrat, a terrible economy and an atrocious foreign policy without Trump, with mashed potato brains bumbling and stumbling and wandering about? You had a choice. This is why William Barr says, and it's important because he's the old guard type of, Republican. He states, quote, "Because I believe the greatest threat to the country is the progressive agenda being pushed by the Democratic Party, it's inconceivable to me that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee," Barr told Samantha Guthrie. "It's hard to project what the facts are going to turn out to be 3 years hence, but as of now, it's hard for me to conceive that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee. Look, Democrats came into the Oval Office wanting to combat climate change. They've jettisoned that immediately. They have released strategic oil reserves. They're now blaming oil companies for not drilling when, of course, it's not the oil companies or gas companies. It's Democrats that made it very difficult for them in a number of ways. And they went and they said that they were going to be an adversary of energy, oil and gas. They wanted to focus on wind and solar, and now there's no way to sanction you-know-who with wind and solar. Okay, they in a heartbeat, in a nanosecond, jettisoned their righteous quest to combat climate change. They're not talking about infrastructure anymore. Build Back Better is done. We was torpedoed by mansion and cinema, but they don't even, my point is they didn't even believe what they were trying to push, which would have cost hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And yes, government spending raises inflation. You want to know why? Because they're creating money out of nowhere. That's what causes inflation. One out of every $5 was created by the Fed. And when you push to end economic activity, you opened up a Pandora's box of all of these problems. Democrats pushed to end economic activity. Although, while it was the height of you know what, they had in-person primaries in Wisconsin with hail and rain hitting people. The biggest hypocrites on the planet, okay? They set up and framed Trump, and William Barr said John Durham's going to get to the bottom. He knows everything. William Barr can't. There are people like William Barr who are Republican who will still vote for Trump, but they still play ball and they cannot tell the exact truth. I mean, you've had William Barr go to bat for Trump a number of times, but they can't speak like Jim Jordan. Okay, then you have Kinzinger, who voted alongside Trump over 90% of the time, but thinks that Trump is a really bad person and wants a no-fly zone, which would literally lead to the end of the planet. It's very lucrative, though, because then you're going to get all the positive media coverage, you'll get book deals, you'll get, hooked up with networking beyond belief. The way that it's, okay, legal graft, Tammany Hall still exists, very much so. Why do you think Andrew Cuomo is talking about a comeback? The networking, that's why Madam Secretary could hire an attorney to then meet with the Central Intelligence Agency. You think both Clintons are going to meet with the Central Intelligence Agency? No. They're going to hire an attorney and tech executives to get all the information possible on Trump, create a narrative, and then give that absurd, false, bogus hoax and myth to government agencies. Just like Terry McAuliffe and Virginia Democrats gave money to Andrew McCabe in a roundabout way. They don't need, this isn't like a blueprint, but they have to sign. We Democrats, have such a networking monstrosity and a public relations monstrosity that we'll get positive media coverage from virtually every publication, compromise government officials by funding campaigns, or having just loyalists within certain, like Peter Strzok will stop Trump, do our bidding. Signed. Oh, and we'll get people like Kleinsmith to lie to FISA judges, and we'll hire Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson and a third-party tech firm to state that who hacked the DNC to influence the 2016, while we then in horror and indignation state that we can't believe Trump won't accept the results. You didn't accept the results for 4 years. And then you get, yes, we did. We just had to investigate. Yes, you investigated the absurd myth you helped create. They created distrust in our democracy and then blame trust for distrust in our democracy. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. The sky is falling under Biden, but you wouldn't know it because media is happy. Trump's tweets, that's the ICBMs could be flying above, and your 401k could be worth negative, but at least Trump isn't tweeting. Give me your thoughts below. William Barr is voting for Trump, and that's a huge deal. The worse things get, and they're going to get worse, the more it will be impossible for people like William Barr not to vote for President Trump, Donald Trump, and that's a good thing, very good thing. Give me your thoughts. Hit subscribe right now. Thank you.